Witches. It's Luna here on a day long dreaded, a day when I have no tarot to unbox for you. I'm out of decks. There are some on the way because my daughter heard that and ordered a whole bunch, but you can do your part. If you look at the list down below, my Amazon wish list, and buy me a deck. Start at the bottom of the list. Go like all the way to the bottom, because the people that buy tend to go to the top and they scroll down to they see one they like. But the ones at the bottom went on that list a lot earlier. So, go digging. Get me a deck. Let's continue the unboxing. But what I'm going to do today is take a look at some books that I have. And I'm going to do these in a couple of bunches because they can be grouped together. So these first three are ones that have been around for a while and take us back to, the earlier days in the 20th century of tarot being readily available and what resources were available to us then. I think these are must-haves for your collection, because it is nice to be able to go back to the beginning meanings, the things that were first written for our modern audience, about the meanings of tarot. And we can kind of track, it's like a game of telephone. We have the original tarot decks, and all the meanings were pretty uniform across the board with those early releases, mid-century releases. And then things started to evolve. And now, of course, they're evolving very quickly, like everything in our time. And you can get a deck the meanings of the cards are very far removed from what these original written meanings were. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm just saying it's nice to be able to track the evolution. So let's take a look at these books. We have P.D. Ouspensky, The Symbolism of the Tarot, Philosophy of Occultism in Pictures and Numbers. This was published in 1913. This particular edition was published in 1976, so you may have to find this. I don't know if there's been any reissues. You might have to find this on a used book site. Then came The Pictorial Key to the Tarot by Arthur Edward Waite. And then we have Mastering the Tarot by Eden Gray. So let's go through. This one only deals with the majors, and as you see, the way it was published, they give you nice full-color images of all the major arcana on cardboard, so that you possibly, hold on a second. No, you couldn't. Doesn't that suck? I was going to say, because they're printed on both sides. That's too bad. I mean, I suppose you could copy it on cardstock and cut them out and make your own deck. But too bad they didn't give you that opportunity with this book. So, The Symbolism of the Tarot, translation by A.L. Pogossky. And let's read on the back. Along with Aleister Crowley, Madame Blavatsky, and George Gurdjieff, P.D. Ouspensky, 1878 to 1947, was one of the most important and influential figures in the occult movements of the 20th century. His book on the Tarot has remained practically unknown since its initial publication in Russia in 1913, yet it is an important work presenting a general introduction and Ouspensky's insights on the 22 cards of the Great Arcana. The cards are presented in pairs, each completing the sense of another. 22 cards from the Waite set described by Ouspensky have been reproduced in full color on the covers. Unabridged corrected republication of the original edition. Okay, so the translation was A.L. Pogossky, and so the Waite cards were in existence at this time, and this is his commentary on them. This is the original commentary, and then this commentary came. So you know what? Let's start with Arthur Waite, since this was the first published. Arthur Edward Waite was a profound student of the occult. He was a member of the Order of the Golden Dawn and made the tarot accessible to the modern-day reader. The classic text for Rider-Waite deck discusses the major and minor arcana, what each card means, reverse card meanings, how to do a basic reading, The Pictorial Guide to the Tarot, Key to the Tarot. I can't read today. Moon is in Aries. That means I'm pushing too hard. Okay, no, Moon's in Cancer. Sorry. Oh, Jesus. I'm breathing. I'm moving on. The Pictorial Key to the Tarot is ideal for use with the Rider-Waite Tarot deck and the Universal Waite Tarot deck. Both currently available at leading bookstores. This is published by U.S. Games as well, of course. Being fragments of a secret tradition under the veil of divination is what it says. Originally published in 1910. This edition was 1997. Now, this one you're going to have to slog through language. You know, walking through knee-deep mud in the floral language of 1910. And not just, I mean, this isn't how ordinary people talked. This is written language, much different. It's also written language about occult mysteries, which made the men writing about them tend to use the densest language possible, in my opinion. So let's just read a little bit of the preface. It seems rather of necessity than predilection in the sense of apologia that I should put on record in the first place a plain statement of my personal position as one who for many years of literary life has been, subject to his spiritual and other limitations, an exponent of the higher mystic schools. It will be thought that I am acting strangely in concerning myself at this day with what appears at first sight and simply a well-known method of fortune-telling. What? Now the opinions of Mr. Smith, even in the literary reviews, are of no importance unless they happen to agree with our own, but in order to sanctify this doctrine, we must take care that our opinions and the subjects out of which they arise are concerned only with the highest. Yet it is just this which may seem doubtful in the present instance, not only to Mr. Smith, whom I respect within the proper measures of detachment, but to some of more real consequence, seeing that their dedications are mine. Huh? I mean, if you read this and you keep reading, there's so many clauses in each sentence, you know, commas, and this clause explains this one, explains this one, explains this one, explains this one, until you have to like go back to refer to the beginning of the sentence by the time you get to the end to figure out what he's talking about. So anyway, dense is the point there. Then we have contents. The veil and its symbols, introductory and general. The pathology of the poet says that the undevout astronomer is mad. The pathology of the very plain man says that genius is mad. And between these extremes, which stand for 10,000 analogous excesses, the sovereign reason takes the part of a moderator and does what it can. Goodness. It feels a bit wanky, doesn't it? I do not think that there is a pathology of the occult dedications, but about their extravagances no one can question, and it is not less difficult than thankless to act as a moderator regarding them. If you sit and think a while, you can get your way through it. And truly, if you do read and just take it a little bit at a time, it will stretch your brain. Hopefully you won't start speaking this way, but it will stretch your brain, and that's a good thing, wherever and however you do it. Okay, so we have class 1, the trumps major, the otherwise greater arcana. Class 2 is the 4 suits, otherwise lesser arcana. Then we have the tarot and history. Then we have the doctrine behind the veil, the tarot and secret tradition, the trumps major and their inner symbolism, conclusion as to the greater keys. Then part 3 is the outer method of the oracles, distinction between greater and lesser arcana. Then we have the lesser. Then we have the greater and their divinatory meanings, some additional meanings of the lesser arcana, the recurrence of cards in dealing, the art of tarot divination, an ancient Celtic method of divination, an alternative method of reading the tarot cards, the method of reading by means of 35 cards. So I'm thinking I might split this video into 3 because this might go deep. Or maybe I'll just give you a skim now and we'll go deep later. So let's just kind of start to flip through. The veil and its symbols, density, 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 on and on and on. So this whole introduction here is long. Trumps major. So he does give a little description. Let's go with the High Priestess. The High Priestess, the Pope Joan, or female pontiff. Ah, be goddamn. There was a female pope, Pope Joan. I mean, for real, for true, this isn't even in the territory of legend. It is solid history. And I learned about her from Barbara Walker's Secrets of the Tarot. But here we are with Arthur Waite at the very beginning, acknowledging Pope Joan. Early expositors have sought to term this card the mother or Pope's wife, which is opposed to the symbolism. It is sometimes held to represent the divine law and the gnosis, in which case the priestess corresponds to the idea of the Shekinah. She is the secret tradition and the higher sense of the instituted mysteries. So see, that's not too dense. There's definitely something you can be gotten. So these are just tiny little descriptions of the majors, and then we have the four suits, otherwise lesser, and there's just a general description. Comparing them to the suits of playing cards. And then we have the Tarot in history. And he really goes deep here. He goes, wow, let me see here. Baldini. Oh, God, I'm going to have, I need to really read these. Okay. So he talks about, the origins and going deep into history here. And then we get to the doctrine behind the veil, the Tarot and secret tradition. And so we get a thing there too. And then we get the trumps major and their inner symbolism. So here you're going to get a long description of everything in the images. But you're not going to get like just concise divinatory meanings. Let's get to the end. And then 22. And interestingly, in this section, and the one where he does give divinatory meanings, he puts the Fool card right before the World instead of at the beginning of the majors. Wondering how that got away from me in the beginning there. Nope, we start with the Magician, and then the Fool comes right before the World. Okay. The outer method of the oracles. Distinction between greater and lesser arcana. And then we go with divinatory meanings for the lesser arcana. And notice they start with the king and they go back through the numbers. Does he explain why? You know what a peeve this is for me. Okay. Otherwise, the four suits of tarot cards will now be described according to their respective classes by the pictures to each belonging, and a harmony of their meanings will be provided from all sources. So that means he has tapped all of the existing sources in 1910 and then synthesized them into the meanings that he wrote. But again, we have no description as to why we start with the king. And I don't really care about the king through page. I want to know why we start with the 10 and go back to the 1. Nobody explains. I want to know why. Okay, so I also have over here the LWB, the little white books from the Rider Tarot deck, the Medieval Scapini Tarot, and the Hanson Roberts deck, all published by U.S. Games, the publisher of the Waite deck. So let's go to, for instance, Three of Wands. And here we have the description of the picture, a calm, stately personage with his back turned. And here we have a calm, stately figure with his back turned, looking from a cliff's edge. So this here is exactly the meanings in the U.S. Games Rider-Waite deck. Pamela Coleman Smith, all those Rider-Waite Smith decks. So Waite-Smith is what I like to call them, because Waite was the writer, Smith was the artist, Rider was just the, executive producer, so to speak. So this exact divinatory meaning and reverse meaning is going to be what you find in the most basic of all decks, the Waite-Smith deck. Then we go to medieval Scapini, and we find a different description because, of course, the images on the cards are different. But now we have practical knowledge, business acumen, enterprise, negotiations, trade, commerce, all of which, symbolizes established strength, enterprise, effort, trade, commerce, discovery. Those are his ships bearing his merchandise, which are sailing over the sea. The card also signifies able cooperation in business, as if the successful merchant prince were looking from his side towards yours with a view to help you. So you do get something more. Hold on a second. These end with those are his ships bearing his merchandise, which are sailing over the sea. So it doesn't talk about cooperation in business. But you see basically the same meanings, just whittled down to more like key words than full sentences in the medieval Scapini. And we have the same thing in the Hanson Roberts. Practical knowledge, business acumen, strength, enterprise, negotiations, trade, commerce, undertaking. So these two, there's actually more of the keywords in the Hanson Roberts than there is in the medieval Scapini. But all U.S. Games decks, and these early U.S. Games decks that really closely followed the original imagery of the Waite-Smith deck, have basically the same meanings, regardless of the image changing. There will be a different description of the image, but the keywords pretty much stay the same. Okay. Let's take a look at one of the majors. All right, so we've got, there's the Pentacles. And then we have the outer method of the oracles, the greater arcana and their divinatory meanings. So here, rather than with the images, you get those divinatory meanings. And let's compare. Skill, diplomacy, address. Sickness, pain, loss, disaster. Self-confidence, will, the querent if male. The only thing missing from here is this talks about subtlety. They left that one out. I think subtlety would have been better left in and address taken out, because I'm not sure what that means. Confidence, self-confidence, will. The snares of enemies they also left out. So we do have, straight up meanings transferred. Let's look at magician in these two. Originality, creativity, free will, imagination, self-reliance, skill, willpower, self-confidence, dexterity, ingenuity, flexibility, craft, guile, masterfulness, self-control, trickery, deception, sleight of hand, unity of thought and emotion, determination to see a task through to completion, ability to influence other people. And that's all the upright meanings. So you can see that by the time we got to medieval Scapini, we really diverged. And then Hanson Roberts, originality, creativity, ability to utilize one's capabilities in order to accomplish a task, imagination, self-reliance, ingenuity, spontaneity, self-control, self-confidence, flexibility. So you have things that are just added and added and added as we go along. And then at the end we have then we get the little concise, some additional meanings of the lesser arcana. So let's look at the Three of Wands there. a very good card. Collaboration will favor enterprise. So it's well worth having. This is well worth having. Then we get the recurrence of cards in dealing. 4 kings, 3 kings, 2 kings. This is really nice. So 4 tens, condemnation, 3 tens, new condition, 2 tens, change. Now see, for me, if I see a lot of tens in a reading, something's coming to an end. Something's culminating. Something is coming to its end game. If I see tens and aces, it means the ending is already in process and the new beginning has already started. So very, very good information in here. And then we have an ancient Celtic method of divination. So, of course, we're going to get the Celtic cross here. And significators, what covers, what crosses, what crowns, what's beneath, what's behind, what's before himself, his house, his hopes or fears, and what will come. An alternative method of reading the cards. So we have 6. Okay. First line, second line, third line, fourth line, fifth line, sixth line. Yikes. 42 cards. Shuffle the entire pack and turn some of the cards round so as to invert their tops. Okay, yes. Let them be cut by the querent with his left hand. Deal out the first 42 in 6 packets of 7 cards. Face upwards so the first 7 cards form the first packet, the following the second, blah, blah. Take the top card of each packet, shuffle them, and lay them out from right to left. Take up the next 2 from each packet, shuffle, lay them out in 2 lines. And wow. See, here's one of the problems that I have. When you get these massive readings, you necessarily have to switch from this card means this card means this, to Lenormand style, where here's this one affecting this one, affecting this one, affecting this one. It is well at the beginning of a reading to run through the cards quickly so that the mind may receive a general impression of the subject, the trend of the destiny, and afterwards to start again reading them one by one and interpreting in detail. You're going to be there for fucking hours. Okay. The value of intuitive and clairvoyant faculties is, of course, assumed in divination. Where these are naturally present or have been developed by the diviner, the fortuitous arrangement of cards forms a link between his mind and the atmosphere of the subject of divination, and then the rest is simple. Where intuition fails or is absent, concentration, intellectual observation, and deduction must be used to the fullest extent to obtain a satisfactory result. Absolutely. So that's the difference between going through, knowing what your cards mean, and just saying, here's what this card means, and then the little voice that starts quacking in your left ear, and the pictures that start showing up. Notes on the practice of divination. Why do I want to say divination? Before beginning the operation, formulate your question definitely and repeat it aloud. Make your mind as blank as possible while shuffling the cards. Put out of mind personal bias and preconceived ideas as far as possible, or your judgment will be tinctured thereby. We don't want tinctured judgment, for God's sake. On this account, it is more easy to divine correctly for a stranger than for yourself or a friend. Yes, absolutely. I was just talking to one, I had a patron call yesterday and was talking about this, that when I read for myself, if I grab tarot to read for myself, I have to pretend I'm reading for somebody that I don't know, particularly if I use Hanson Roberts or decks that I've internalized. If I'm using a deck I haven't internalized, I just look up meanings and go like that. But with my Hanson Roberts, I can lay a card out and I read out loud as if I'm reading for somebody else, and I will say things that I didn't know, Okay. Method of reading by means of 35 cards. So we're putting things into packets and then dealing them out. And everything going from right to left I find is interesting. And then he's got a bibliography here, which might be worth tiptoeing through. Try to find ones that are written in English. Okay. So, well worth having. Now, Ouspensky, this is just the majors. And here's the translation. Let's just read a little bit to see what the language is like. No study of occult philosophy is possible without an acquaintance with symbolism, for if the words occultism and symbolism are correctly used, they mean almost one and the same thing. Interesting. And occult just means hidden. When I worked for orthopedic surgeons, they would talk about, somebody having an occult fracture, which means they can't see it on X-ray, but all of the symptoms of the fracture are there. So it looks, acts, smells, tastes, feels like a fracture, but we can't see it. That's what occult means. Unseen, hidden. Everything around it says it's there, but you can't see it. Okay. Symbolism cannot be learned as one learns to build bridges or speak a foreign language, and for the interpretation of symbols, a special cast of mind is necessary. In addition to knowledge, special faculties, the power of creative thought, and a developed imagination are required. One who understands the use of symbolism in the arts knows in a general way what is meant by occult symbolism. But even then, a special training of the mind is necessary in order to comprehend the language of the initiates, in quotes, and to express in this language the intuitions as they arise. There are many methods for developing the sense of symbols in those who are striving to understand the hidden forces of nature and man, and for teaching the fundamental principles as well as the elements of the esoteric language. The most synthetic and one of the most interesting of these methods is the tarot. So we have much more easily flowing language in this. So he talks about the majors. Of course, that's all that's in this book. And he talks about Kabbalah, alchemy, astrology, magic. And it's so funny to look at because we have justified margins. So you get this thing, which is funny when you're reading, where you've got letters that are all spaced out, just so the margins are justified. So it's like in every suit, the king means the first principle, or fire, the queen, the second. It makes me want to pull the words out. Anyway, I have to have fun or it's no good, you guys. All right. So the following pen pictures cards are taken in pairs. 1 and 0, 2 and 21, 3 and 20. Okay. But they're not paired up. I don't understand. Okay. In each pair, one card completing the sense of another and two making one. So 1 and 0, which means that they are putting the Fool card at the end of the major arcana, after the world. Waite put it just before the world. The 22 cards may be divided into 3 divisions, including each 7 cards of similar meaning. The 22nd card, number 21, as a duplicate of the number 10, standing outside the triangle or forming a point in its center. The 3 sets of 7 belong. The first one to the man, the second to the nature, and the third to the higher knowledge or to the theosophy in the large sense of the word. The first set of 7 is magician, fool, chariot, hermit, lovers, devil, and hanged man. The contents of these 7 cards, if taken in time, picture 7 degrees of the path of man and his way to the Superman. Or if taken in the eternal now, picture 7 faces of man, or 7 eyes of man coexisting in him. This last meaning represents the inner sense of the secret doctrine of the Tarot and its relations to man. So I can say I have been a magician, a fool, a chariot, a hermit, a lover, a devil, and a hangman. Okay, the second set of 7, nature, includes the Empress, number 10, which they call life, but that's the Wheel of Fortune, death, 14, which they call time, which is temperance, the Tower, the Sun, and Judgment. The third set of 7, Theosophy, includes the High Priestess, the Emperor, Strength, the Hierophant, Justice, the Star, and the Moon. So there's an interesting study in itself. Now, wow. Let's get to the cards. And here is where they take them in pairs. So we have card 1 and card 0. And then we have the High Priestess and the World. Let's do the High Priestess. When I lifted the first veil and entered the outer court of the Temple of Initiation, I saw in half darkness the figure of a woman sitting on a high throne between two pillars of the temple, one white and one black. Mystery emanated from her and was about her. Sacred symbols shone on her green dress. On her head was a golden tiara, surmounted by a two-horned moon. On her knees she held two crossed keys and an open book. Between the two pillars behind the woman hung another veil all embroidered with green leaves and fruit of pomegranate, and a voice said, pardon me, to enter the temple one must lift the second veil and pass between the two pillars, and to pass thus one must obtain possession of the keys, read the book, and understand the symbols. Are you able to do this? I would like to be able, I said. Then the woman turned her face to me and looked into my eyes without speaking. And through me passed a thrill, mysterious and penetrating like a golden wave. Tones vibrated in my brain. A flame was in my heart. And I understood that she spoke to me, saying without words, "This is the hall of wisdom. No one can reveal it. No one can hide it. Like a flower it must grow and bloom in thy soul. If thou wouldst plant the seed of this flower in thy soul," and in italics, "learn to discern the real from the false. Listen only to the voice that is soundless. Look only on that which is invisible. And remember that in thee thyself is the temple and the gate to it, and the mystery and the initiation." I haven't read this book in a long time. How much information is in that? I would get, must have. Don't know if this is still in print. I'm going to find out for you right now. Ouspensky. Oh, for Christ's sake. Okay. Yes, it is. Absolutely. You can get it on Thrift Books, Abe Books, used on eBay. You can get it on Amazon with a different cover. Paperback is $7.95. So it is still in print. I would get this because these are worth meditating on. Now, let's go to the World to see how these pair up. An unexpected vision appeared to me, a circle not unlike a wreath woven from rainbow and lightnings, whirled from heaven to earth with this stupendous velocity, blinding me by its brilliance. And amidst this light and fire I heard music and soft singing, thunderclaps and the roar of a tempest, the rumble of falling mountains and earthquakes. The circle whirled with a terrifying noise, touching the sun and earth, and in the center of it I saw the naked dancing figure of a beautiful young woman. Enveloped by a light, transparent scarf, in her hand she held a magic wand. Presently the four apocalyptical beasts began to appear on the edges of the circle, one with the face of a lion, another with the face of a man, the third of an eagle, and the fourth of a bull. The vision disappeared as suddenly as it appeared. A weird silence fell on me. "What does it mean?" I asked in wonder. "It is the image of the world," the voice said, "but it can be understood only after the temple has been entered." So the priestess is about entering the temple. This is a vision of the world in the circle of time amidst the four principles. But thou seest differently because thou seest the world outside thyself. Learn to see it in thyself, and thou wilt understand the infinite essence hidden in all illusory forms. Understand that the world which thou knowest is only one of the aspects of the infinite world, and things and phenomena are merely hieroglyphs of deeper ideas. Now, what this doesn't have, when I read the High Priestess, I assumed that the italics was like the pithy meaning, but the other ones don't have that. So, again, absolutely worth having, and we don't have any blather. You know, we've got this section in the beginning, which I'm certainly going to read like right after this. But then we've just got these beautiful meditations on each of the images. So worth having. Now, let's take this from the male mind to the female mind. This is Mastering the Tarot by Eden Gray, and this was in the 70s. Let's see. 1971 is when this book was published. And we have the next step in the evolution. So let's go to the contents here and see what she puts out. We have the minor arcana. So lesson 1 is preliminary steps. I like that it's divided into lessons rather than chapters. Getting acquainted with the cards. There's something about the tarot that is truly fascinating. Not only do the symbols depicted on the cards challenge the imagination, but the cards themselves seem to have the power to help us explore the past and reveal hidden passions, old loves and hurts, as well as hopes and desires for the future. When you've mastered their secrets, they can give you glimpses into the future and guide you to paths that may lead to greater fulfillment. All right. So obviously beautifully understandable language, modern language. Preliminary steps, we have preparation. Open a card table or clean off a large enough space on your dining room table to lay out the cards without crowding them. Shuffle them thoroughly. As they may seem too large, you'll soon get used to their size and find them easy to handle. Turn it face up, taking one after another on the top. Place them in piles according to their suits. So yeah, this is the way I always recommend people start with a deck. You take them out, and I go through them first in order, then shuffle, and then resort. So you just really get used to the images going into your brain. Then I always recommend that you go through, and this might be the first time through the deck, and just set aside ones that stand out to you, that either attract you very much or repel you very much. The repellent ones are just as important. Okay, now sorting, care of the cards, symbols. Okay, care of the cards. In some mysterious way, the tarot cards seem to be influenced by the vibrations of those who handle them. People with a proper respect for their divinatory powers are usually able to get good results when laying out the cards, but those who treat the tarot like a game may well find that the cards sometimes balk at making any sense. And this is true, the mindset that you use to approach the cards. So, if you are able to say, yep, they're just ink and paper and whatever, but then pull that magical mindset as you approach a reading, that works. But it's better if you just treat them with respect in all, in all interactions with them, because then your unconscious mind really starts to absorb the sense that they're special. Okay, so we start with the minors, general observations. Some of the symbolism was derived from old Germanic mythology, where certain real or imaginary creatures were associated with the elements. The salamander, supposed to be unscathed by fire, was chosen to represent fire. The undine, a female water sprite, was associated with water. The sylph with air, and a little gnome with earth. These are just magical associations too. So she talks about the suits, the meanings of the suits in divination, symbology of numbers, the aces, twos, and threes. So she takes them by number, and this is really valuable. And you might do this with 2 decks, or like when you have a deck that you have really internalized and you get a new tarot deck and you want to see, you want to compare, take them with all the aces at once, all the twos at once. All right. So let's go to the 3 of Wands and compare with our Waite interpretations. We have the merchant shown in the 2 of Wands. He can now see his ships returning from across the waters of his subconscious. And see, this is a book that I rebought used because I had it way back in the beginning and gave it away for some damn reason or other. And I was remembering, I kept going to my bookshelf and looking for it, and it wasn't there, so I rebought it. Don't know if this is still in print. But this is where, I latched onto the ships coming in. When I see this, it's like ships coming in. Success is on its way to you. You're finally seeing return on investment. There will be a cooperation in business affairs. Trade and commerce will flourish. A good partnership brings success. Practical help may come from a successful person. So we went from the original Waite having phrases in there to then the subsequent decks kind of synthesizing those down to just words, keywords, and now she's taking those keywords and fleshing them out again in more modern language. All right, so let's get through the minors, and then we go to the majors. We have general observations. And here's what I like about buying used books. Someone has written in here. So, the Fool, and here's what this person has written. Well, first of all, let me tell you something else. So, for the minors, we get a depiction of the image, we get the interpretation, and then reversed. For the majors, we get interpretation first, and we get a general meaning. We don't get that with the minors. Oh, and I will go back because she does the court cards separately, too. So we get the general meaning, a choice is offered. We get the interpretation reversed. And then in a reading, when this card appears in the future of the seeker, it is read as a choice that will be offered him. If a card is near it, then the kind of person suggested by that card will be the one who offers the opportunity. So we do get hints on how to contextually read the majors. Description. A youth looks out into the distance. So at the very end, you get a description of the image. And here are her notes. Up, experience with no apprehension. Pioneer, openness, childlike. Reversed, foolhardy. 0, beginning and ending. White, purity, dog, rose. So she puts some symbols that mean something to her. So, yeah, buy used books, you guys. They're fantastic. And then let's look at how she does the court cards. Kings represent men, queens women, knights represent young men, pages represent both boys and girls. So here we see the misogyny. And then the standard, blonde hair and blue eyes as wands, light brown hair and hazel eyes as cups, brown hair, brown eyes as swords, black hair, black eyes as pentacles. I have never done that. I have never used that system. If you do, that's fine for you. No judgment one way or the other here. The, overarching rule of tarot is if it works for you, it works, period. Okay, general observations, shuffling. Now she's talking about reversing, taking the deck, splitting it in half, turning half, shuffle, riffle, shuffle, and to do that every time. Now, there was something here that stood out to me that was weird. All right, how to lay out the cards. I have often been asked whether in laying out the cards, the reader pulls them toward himself as he turns them up or away from him. So she's talking about doing this, pulling like this or pulling like this. I turn sideways because then they stay in the same, when you do this, you flip it over. No. That's terribly confusing. So I trained myself early on to turn cards this way. Then they stay the same. And she acknowledges that. Naturally, this will make no difference in the way they fall from between this and between this, but it flips them upside down. But it would make a difference to take them off the pack sideways. See, it doesn't. That's what doesn't make sense to me. Try holding a pack in your hands now. See which way is more comfortable for you. You'll note that a card that is right side up when face down will be reversed when you pull it off the pack and turn it face up. Right. So, anyway, I've also seen readers shuffle the deck and they hold the deck upside down and pull the cards just straight off the bottom and lay them down. I find that interesting too. All right. Talking about procedures to do before each reading, laying out the cards, but before you read, well, to take a look at the overall picture and try to get an idea of the meaning of the layout in general. Several cards of one suit, several court cards, few of the major arcana. So this is worth knowing. 4 or more wands in a spread will indicate growth and energy. So they're talking about if you're doing like a Celtic cross, a 10-card spread. 4 or more cups. So 4 or more wands, growth and energy. 4 or more cups. Question has to do with the emotion, perhaps love, children, pleasure. 4 or more swords suggests aggressive ambition, perhaps destructive activities. Pentacles, question about money, trade, material gain. Courts, several wands, a business conference. Several cups, a gay company. Several swords, conflict. Several pentacles, politics, high finance. 2 kings of any suit, a conference. 2 queens, gossip, especially if they're facing each other. 2 knights, a fight. 2 pages, playful pastimes. 3 or 4 majors, powerful outside forces are at work that will influence the seeker. The outcome is not in his hands, but in those of others. Now, I look at the majors as indicating life lessons, karmic lessons. So if I'm doing a 10-card spread and I get, 4 or more majors, it's going to be, this is major karmic stuff going on. If I'm doing like a Wheel of Fortune, I take account of everything and just look at them relative to each other. A lot of, a lack of majors says that it's all about day-to-day things that will pass. Nothing major life lesson-y going on. Also, I look to see if there's a lot of motion. So if there are a lot of horses moving forward or people in motion, that says things are moving forward. Then again, you can look at a reading and say there's a total lack of movement going on here. Things are stuck. Yeah, a lot of ways to look at general. All right, then we have Celtic Cross. Then we have sample readings. 3 quick ways to read, yes or no. Okay, so the way that she does a yes or no, good method where you don't want to spend a lot of time or effort. Shuffle the question into the cards as before. Cut them into 3 piles to the left. Ding, ding, ding. Pick up the first. Then pick up the first pile laid down. Spread all 78 cards out on the table face down. Okay, wait. So you do them in 3 packs and then you just spread them all out. Intuitively pick 3 of them and discard the rest. Turn these 3 face up. The answer depends on how many of the 3 are right side up. If there are 3, then it's a definite yes. 2, probable yes. 3, reversed, no. And 2 reversed, a qualified no. So the way I do it, all right. So they're talking about aces now for yes or no. Yep, this is how I do yes or no with aces. But now that I'm doing reverses, it is interesting to just pick 3 at random and see, go by reverse or upright. What I do, shuffle, and then you just start counting out cards. Count to 13. If you hit an ace before you hit 13, go to the next pile. If you hit an ace before 13, go to the next pile. And so then if you get 3 aces up, it's definite yes. 2 aces up, probable yes. 2 only 1 ace up, probable no. No aces, absolutely no. Okay. Now, more examples. The Tarot and Astrology. Life reading by the horoscope method. So she's going to do, cards in horoscope houses. And then solar chart method of divination. Ooh, that's interesting. Okay. Worth reading. Directions for using the solar chart cutout. Okay. All right, interesting. And then we have solar chart. So this must be the cutout. I don't know. The use and misuse of the tarot. Now, I've left this important subject to the last since I feel that now, after you've gained an understanding of the cards, you will more readily comprehend how serious a misuse of the cards may be and how conscientious you must be with your new knowledge. This is wonderful already. Only a few days ago, I received the following letter from a young woman of 20 who's currently attending a small Eastern college. It is now several months since an amateur palmist revealed a terrible future in my hands. This disturbed me so much that my family and friends have become concerned about the change in me. My future, as she read it, was as follows. I would lack the qualities I needed to pursue a career. My life would be a succession of routine jobs. I would have 2 marriages, both disastrous. My life would come to an end in middle age. Needless to say, I was greatly upset by her letter. She was obviously very deeply affected by what the amateur palmist had predicted. I hastened to assure her that neither palmistry, astrology, the tarot, nor any other occult discipline could possibly predict anything of the future with precise accuracy. And that's the end of the sentence, folks. Her amateur palmist had been most irresponsible, and it would be wise for her to toss the predictions out the window. I told her that each of us makes his destiny and that she could become anything she really wanted to and could have a life of her own making. A week later, I received her reply. She wrote, "The dread of a negative response from you was almost overwhelming, to the point of my nearly leaving your answer unread. Thank God I didn't. Your words were like capsules of dynamite, exploding old fantasies as well as old fears, and yet I was not left feeling futile, but rather uplifted. There was no better answer to be had for me, Dr. Gray, for even a good tarot reading could not have conquered the alienation I was experiencing between me and myself and God." She had asked me to do a reading for her, but I had refused, feeling that she was in too susceptible and apprehensive a state. So, there we go. I mean, that would be worth reading. I want to read this last thing. The seeds you plant can blossom into lovely flowers of accomplishment. Watch for the pitfalls when you read the cards. Recognize how very suggestible everyone is, and then go ahead and use the cards for good. You have been warned sufficiently about hasty and negative interpretations of your precious tarot cards. Give those for whom you read encouragement to strive for their highest ideals. Absolutely. And the other thing is that I want you to know is that you don't have any control over what someone hears, no matter how carefully you say it. They are living in their own context. And the example of this that I always go back to is someone who was looking at leaving her marriage for a new relationship and looking for validation in that. And I did a reading at the end of which I said, responsibilities must come first. You must, take care of your responsibilities. And in her context, her responsibility was to herself. And she left her marriage and kids. So, but you should also stop short of telling somebody what to do. It's their choice. And if you tell them what to do and they do it and it fails, who are they going to blame? So, yeah. So then we have additional tarot readings here. And she's giving example readings, which are always helpful. And then there's a glossary, which the other books do not have. So, let's see. Yeah, we don't have a glossary here. So, there you have it, you guys. 3 books if you are serious about being a student of the tarot. Not that I'm, can call myself a serious student because I haven't read these books cover to cover. But, I'm not a historian. I'm a user. That sounds horrible. I'm a practitioner. Let's put it that way. All right. I hope that was a worthy substitute for having an actual deck. If it wasn't, buy me a deck. And you know that if you do, you get a reading from that deck from me to you. So until next time, y'all, I'll see you on Wednesday for a live stream, Friday for another unboxing, I hope, because I don't have any more Oracle decks either. I do have more books, though, so that might be featured. All right, you guys, shoot me a donation if you feel like it, and check out the rest of the stuff on my channel. Like, subscribe, share, all that stuff. I am TheZenWitch Tarot and Astrology on Facebook. There's also a place to DM me below for booking a reading. All right, you guys, see you next time. This is TheZenWitch. Blessed be.